For January the 23rd to order. The first item of business is we are going to have Mr. Cord Insminger, Director of our Transportation, give us, lead us in our pledge and our prayer.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, we just thank you for letting us come and be about your business tonight, about the students of Beauregard Parish, that we may lead them to be productive citizens of our country, that they may go forward and do great things. We just ask you to be with those families that are still grieving the losses from last week. Just ask you just a special hand of grace upon each and every one of them. We ask you just to guide this meeting and let us be about your business. In Jesus' name, amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
All right, so I know everybody is chomping at the bit to go on this, right? New board, new superintendent. So the first item we need to do is vote on the agenda. Everybody has a copy of that? Is there a motion to accept the agenda? Mr. Thibodeau, second?
Second.
Mr. Green? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, first item up, to consider the selection process for filling the position of superintendent. So as you know, our longtime superintendent, Mr. Tim Cooley, retired, I think effective date January the 15th, correct? Currently, Mr. Larry Hawley is serving as our interim superintendent of the Beauregard Parish Schools, already off to having to make some hard choices. And don't envy your position.
Well, I might go down as the superintendent who let out school 3 days out of the 6 days he's been on the
Hey,
job.
man, you're going for the popularity contest.
I'm winning
Yeah.
with students, so.
Yeah.
Knowing our parents, we like our kids safe. Great job.
So it is a very unique, well, not all boards get to go through this process. I've been here for 8 years and have not gone through the process of hiring a new superintendent. Hopefully, this will be the only time that we go through that, but we never know, right? Some of you will likely be on here for several years, so you'll probably get another crack at it. But we want to make sure that we do it correctly, regardless. This is going to be our leader moving forward. And to the best of our abilities, as a board, we're going to try to agree on the best candidate. And we're also going to try to support that candidate as that person leads the school system. So doesn't mean we're not going to ask questions, right? And we're not going to oversee, and we're not going to do everything that we need to do as a board. But we do need to put someone in that position that we can certainly trust, right? So Ms. Crane, I'm going to let you kind of give us a breakdown of the process for hiring the superintendent and where we need to start.
Okay. Good evening, Board. Okay. In your packet, I think you received a job description for the superintendent and also the list of duties for the superintendent. Move some of this away here. In the recruitment of the superintendent, we must meet both state and local qualifications in selecting the superintendent. They must hold a type A or level 3 teaching certificate, as stated in the job description. They must have 5 years of successful school experience. They must hold a master's degree. And there is a set of guidelines that we need to follow when advertising for this position.
Ms. Crane, who sets these guidelines?
What you see is the recruitment comes from Bulletin 746, Louisiana Department of Education Bulletin 746, under the state guidelines for recruiting a Louisiana school superintendent. Okay?
That's who sets the type A.
Yes, that is the
Level 3.
certification needed in order
the-
to serve as a school superintendent. Yes. That is outlined in Bulletin 746 that can be found on the Louisiana Department of Education website under Bessie. That bulletin outlines everything there as well.
I'm just curious what that looks like.
Yes, yes. It's very specific.
Okay.
Very specific. Okay.
And just so whenever we as a board, if there is something that comes down from Bessie, the Board of Education, Department of Ed, like, that's not a choice that we necessarily have to follow, correct?
Right,
So,
and-
so if something is passed down from those guys, they're our bosses, so to speak, and so we have to follow their guidelines.
Correct. And with certification, certification is very specific. It changes constantly, I will tell you that. So Bulletin 746 outlines the standards of certification for every employee, professional employee in the school district. Okay? And it goes into detail what we have to do, and our personnel department is responsible for making sure that, we're meeting those guidelines and our personnel are certified or working towards certification and doing what we're supposed to do to meet those guidelines, yes.
So let's do this. I'll kind of, me and Ms. Crane did visit earlier. Also met briefly with the district attorney, make sure everything's clear, make sure that have the board going in the right direction. I might just ask you some questions, then we'll
Absolutely.
get it going. So I guess the first thing is timing. We have to seat the superintendent within 6 months of Mr. Holly's appointment as an interim.
Correct.
So if, at our earliest point, when could we start advertising? And then can you speak to all the papers and the issues that must be marked off?
Okay. The guidelines state that we must advertise twice in our official journal. And the Beauregard Parish School Board official journal is the Beauregard Daily News, okay? So that advertisement must be presented twice as one of the requirements. We must once in a daily newspaper published in a metropolitan area in the state having a population in excess of 100,000 persons that is nearest to the school board offices in such newspaper and is not the official journal. So, in meeting these requirements, we have done some research, and our official journal is the only one that is going to set a precedent as far as when it can go out then. And I'm going to tell you why. Because the Beauregard Daily News, in order to advertise in the Beauregard Daily News, the ad has to be to them by Tuesday at 2 o'clock for it to be posted or for it to be in the Friday paper. The only time that those advertisements are placed in the Beauregard Daily News are on Fridays. So we must advertise 2 Fridays in a row for this particular position, okay?
So, I'm going to stop.
Go ahead.
Just pause. So, as a board, we select the official journal. And currently, that is the official journal. Now, in the future, we can change that if we wanted to, but that's what we have right now.
Okay. So in saying that, we have to advertise 2 Fridays, okay? So that is the first obligation that we must meet. in today, we did some research and we have called I just called as many newspapers as possible around that I felt like that you may be interested in advertising in. We looked at Shreveport Times, the News Star, which is in Monroe, the Daily Advertiser, which is Lafayette, the Town Talk, which is Alexandria. As far as advertising in those, a 72-hour wait period to get that ad in is the most we would have to wait. So that's really good news. We can get that ad out very quickly. And I want to also state that any of these newspapers or areas of publication they all have online access, so that can be put on immediately. As soon as we can get that ad proofed and ready to go, that online access will be there, okay?
Ms. Crane, so let me pause right there, please. So we are required to advertise twice in our local journal and once in a newspaper in a metropolitan area with greater than 100,000 population. But we're not limited to those only
Absolutely not.
we can literally, any avenue after that, we can do whatever we want.
We can advertise in any area that you wish to. And that, like I said, I just kind of did some research on the different newspapers and opportunities of advertisement around, and I just wanted to throw those ideas out at you so you can just kind of hear that and kind of process on that. The Advocate in Baton Rouge, the Beauregard Daily News, which is our official journal, we have to advertise twice there. The Lake Charles American Press, the Beaumont Enterprise. The Beaumont Enterprise, one of the things that they commented on, that the southwesttexas.com, they highly recommend going out on that because it reaches all of southeast Texas. That is an online source, so that may be something you would be interested in as a board. And also, excuse
I'm
me.
sorry.
No,
Now, if you advertise in Texas, and is it a different requirement, school teaching wise? Is it a different regulation, right?
yes, sir. If you advertise in Texas or in any other state, okay, you have to consider the certification of the applicants, okay? If we would hire an out-of-state superintendent, that out-of-state superintendent must be eligible for what's called an out-of-state superintendent certification, okay? And there are specific guidelines in 746 for out-of-state superintendent, the OSS certification. And those are the guidelines if we receive applicants from out-of-state individuals. We will look at the qualifications that would have to be met in order for them to obtain their OSS and make sure they are eligible to be able to obtain that certification. Yes, sir.
Are we limited to just newspapers? Can we do websites? Can we do national?
Yes, the Louisiana School Board Association. If you look on that right now, there is probably 4 superintendent advertisements on there right now. And so she told us that as soon as we get the ad ready, get it proofed, ready to go, she can advertise there immediately. And so, yes.
So everyone heard the list that she had. Is there anything else that we should add to that list besides what you've heard already tonight? Any other avenues? Any other suggestions?
Well, I mean, I would say in the Internet of Things, I would never see it in a newspaper, and so I know that there are various job recruiting websites and platforms out there that people in my generation go to first, and other generations as well. I don't want to stamp anybody out, but so I mean, I would say just utilizing some of those top websites in terms of recruitment. That would be my only concern.
Yeah, Indeed or
What about KPLC? Sometimes they do the community day and you put that on TV.
You tell me what your wishes are, and we will do whatever what your wishes are, the, pleasure of the board.
Yeah, radio reaches more people than anything, but I don't know if that's the avenue we'd want to pay for or look at.
Yeah, I don't know if that would be,
Are you saying radio or are you talking about like television,
Just radio.
radio? I guess I'm not a big
I
radio.
think to some
you know,
degree, once some of these advertisements get out there,
I'm
word
sad
of
about
mouth
it.
and whatnot pass, so.
yeah, I don't know if,
Television and stuff like that.
I don't know if TV and radio would be a wise usage of necessarily our money, but I would hope that KPLC
Run
would
the story.
pick up the story.
Yeah, run the story.
Job sites, definitely.
The community,
If we could-
they'll run it.
Maybe a press release to KPLC would maybe be a better
Yeah, I think
avenue.
that's a good idea.
Ms. Crane, do you recall, you weren't in this position, when the board hired Mr. Cooley, have you been able to find any records of where the previous board went out, what they did?
Yes, Lake Charles American Press, naturally, the Advocate, the Beauregard Daily News, naturally, they went, Beaumont and, Shreveport and Monroe.
So if it gets to a situation where we have to put a relocation package together, at that time, do you know if that board kind of looked at something and put something together for that, just in case someone needed to relocate?
I did not see anything in my research about that, but we could definitely, I could help you with that.
Okay.
Now, Mr. Bowman, well, actually, Ms. Crane, you said that they were required to run it twice. Is there a length of time specified for how long we have to run each of these ads?
1 week apart. In the Beauregard Daily News, because it's our official journal, it says on 2 separate dates, at least 1 week apart in the official journal of the school board.
So it would have to, if it went in on Friday, it would run Friday to Friday. We'd have to take a week off and then
1
another
week
one, or
apart.
it could be consecutive.
It could be consecutive.
Okay, I
week
just
to
wanted
week.
to
1 week
clarify.
apart, right. And they only advertise on Friday, so.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, you couldn't do a Friday and a Wednesday.
Yeah, right.
In the official journal, but we don't have that problem
Right.
because we only advertise on Friday in our official journal. You
It-
can advertise as long as you wish.
I think the next time constraint that we have to just check mark, and I don't think it's gonna be an issue at all, is we can't take action until after that second run through the Beauregard Daily News for 30 days after that point.
After the ad goes out to the metropolitan area of 100,000 population and the 2 advertisements in the Beauregard Daily News are completed. That's right.
That's
From
when,
the day of completion, we can't seat anyone, we can't even have an interview for 30 days, or we just can't seat
You
anyone.
can't seat anyone for 30 days from that point. Once it states, all publication requirements stated above shall be completed at least 30 days prior to action by the school board to fill the position of superintendent.
So we could interview during that time. We
Yes.
could not seat them until a day.
That is correct.
Okay. So we could advertise on a Friday, and then the next Friday, then we could accept applications and start interviewing the next week? Like a week
At
and a
minimum,
half?
at minimum.
Right.
well, in theory, yes.
In theory, yes, okay.
But you would have people hopefully traveling from other areas
Right.
that we would have to do some planning, and we got
You
10
have-
members here and.
I know. I'm
Several,
just,
yeah.
in my head though, I'm just like, wow, that's quick, that you can do Friday,
Right.
Friday, and then, yeah.
Well, you have to, number one, once you advertise, naturally, you have to give some time for people to respond to those advertisements. And then once you set a date in which those ads close, when you no longer accept applications, naturally, you need to have a time for whoever you decide to look at those applications and make sure that we look at the qualifications. Are they able to be certified as a school superintendent or an out-of-state school superintendent? If they are, then, do you wish to interview them? So there's some time, you have to give some time. Then once you have that list, you have to provide time to, number one, notify. I notify each applicant that you wish to interview by certified mail. I will also email them and call them by phone to make sure that they get that interview time, okay? But we do send an official letter stating their interview time, date, in an official publication. So there is some, there's some timelines that have to be met in order for people to prepare, for us to get the notifications out and the letters out, but also to allow those applicants to prepare and to make plans for travel, to attend the interview.
So it seems that Bulletin 746 is just trying to establish minimum standards. We of course want to go above and beyond that, but we at least have these minimum standards to meet. And so thank you for explaining all of that.
And also, you have your policies in our Bulgar Parish School Board policy, that outlines these steps, so.
So, Ms. Graham, go
Oh,
ahead.
no, go ahead, Jared. Well, I was gonna ask, for the applicants that don't meet the specifications, are we still notified that they applied and the reasoning why that they did not proceed to the applicant or the
Yes, ma'am.
interview stage?
I will write them an official letter that we received their application, thank them for their interest in Bulgar Parish School Board, and notify them that they have not met the qualifications for, school superintendent. Therefore, we would not be interviewing them.
And then, but we would know about it?
Absolutely, we would notify them, yes.
No, us, as
Yes.
a board, okay.
Yes.
So you guys in the personnel department are really going to be helping us vet these candidates to make sure that when the interviews come up, only the people that are qualified to get the job will be interviewing. And so I'm just trying to understand what each of our roles are in all of this.
I will do what you want me to do, okay? If you want me to, yes, I understand the certification requirements. And I can tell you that if I have a question or if I feel uneasy about anything, I do have, a connection to Louisiana Department of Education. We will ask. If we have a question, if we have any questions at all, we will ask before we proceed, yes. But I am very familiar with the certification guidelines, and I will do whatever you want me to do to assist you. I am here to assist.
Are we obligated to interview the candidates who do meet the qualifications?
You select the individuals you would like to interview.
Ms. Crane, the OSS certification when they're out of state, is there a timeline, say, if we all just really felt led for it to be out of state? Is there a timeline that they have to complete that certification?
Once you hire them, we will go out for that certification. We will do the application process and we will apply for that certification.
The applicant?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. The personnel department assists with their application. We always help with that, yes.
So they don't, I think I get what you're getting at. So they don't have to have this in order to get the job. They can get the job.
They have to be qualified and able to be out of state certified.
Okay.
Yes, yes. So
you-
no, if they have never served as a Louisiana superintendent or, an educational leader in Louisiana, they're not going to have the Louisiana Ed Leader 3 on their certificate or have an OSS. They're not going to have that. So naturally, us as the employing agent would apply for their OSS.
So can you speak to the eligibility for someone that does not necessarily have level 3, but they have level 2 and eligible for level 3?
You must have a level 3. You must have an educational leader level 3 teaching certificate. Now, if you have never if you are not currently serving as a superintendent or an assistant superintendent, your EDL 3 would not be active. However, in Louisiana, when you meet the qualifications for EDL 3, that's Ed Leader 3, when you meet those qualifications, when you have met all of the qualifications to be qualified to be a superintendent, on your certificate, on your Louisiana teaching certificate, there is a statement that says you are EDL3 eligible. Once you are hired, then they activate that Ed Leader certificate and it becomes active. Okay? But there is a statement on that certificate, the Louisiana certificate, that says you are EDL3 eligible.
And we're accepting those, correct?
Absolutely. That simply means they have met all of the qualifications to be EDL certified. But they have not served yet as a superintendent or an assistant superintendent.
Would you mind, I don't quite see it in here, I've seen it before, but would you mind just telling us what are the qualifications to get that certification eligibility? Like what do you, what are some things that you have to do in order to obtain that?
An Educational Leader Certificate Level 3, EDL 3. This certificate is required in order to serve as a school system superintendent or assistant superintendent. I'm reading directly from Bulletin 746, which is the certification, okay, if you were wondering. Eligibility requirements. Must hold and be eligible to hold an EDL 2 or one of the Louisiana Administrative Supervisory certifications that precede the Educational Leadership Certification Structure. In other words, that's where your Type A comes in. That is certification prior to the Ed Leader. Okay? 3 years of teaching experience, 5 years of successful administrative or management experience in education at the level of assistant principal or above with assistant principal experience limited to a maximum of 2 years of the 5 years of experience, with all out-of-state experience verified as successful by the out-of-state employing authority. Earn a passing score on the BESI-approved school superintendent assessment in accordance with state requirements. That's what's required in order to go from a educational leader 2 to a 3.
Okay, so, all right, so I can see how it would be easy enough to get, not easy, but I can see how it would be easy to show this experience for these first 3 items that you listed, the EDL2, the 3 years of teaching experience, the 5 years of principal experience. How would an out-of-state candidate, why would they ever take the BESI test, the certification test? You know what I mean? So like, how do you know how that would?
They would not have to take they would if they have superintendent already on their certificate. If their state superintendent certificate says they are certified as a assistant or a superintendent or an assistant superintendent, they can qualify for an OSS.
Okay.
It's an out of state.
But what if they've never served in that capacity? Then they would just not qualify?
Right.
Okay.
So in Texas, right across the border, so I bring it up, they operate under ISDs. They don't operate under the county level. It's essentially at the city level. So keep in mind, you have a lot more quantity of superintendents in Texas.
Let me read from you 746, Mr. Green, so you understand what the certification law says. It says the eligibility to become an out-of-state superintendent. The first eligible requirement is employment by Louisiana Public School System, okay, to serve as superintendent or assistant superintendent. In other words, you have to be, we have to say we want to hire you as a superintendent
Okay.
for you to receive an OSS. Have a valid teaching certificate from another state with authorization to serve as a school superintendent. Okay, so their teaching certificate from out of state, and this is why when in the application process, we require them to send their teaching certificate, so we can see that they have that superintendent endorsement on there.
Gotcha.
Okay? A graduate degree naturally, and 5 years of successful administrative or management experience in education. Okay? And then 3 years of successful teaching in an out-of-state school. Okay? In an out-of-state system. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. So
Okay.
basically, in our state, where they would have to receive the certification by passing this certification test.
Mm-hmm.
They would have to essentially have the equivalent to in their
Exactly.
state to get the stamp.
And
the
so
eligibility
it's
stamp.
basically, the people from out of state went through basically the same steps as Louisiana
Gotcha.
candidates did.
Okay.
It's just their endorsement is from another state. Yes. They had to meet many of the same qualifications that our Ed Leader 3s had to meet. It's in another state. That is correct.
Okay. That very much answers
And
my question.
different states, they may vary a little in their requirements. However, they're very similar.
So, Ms. Crane, what I was gonna ask earlier is, so, all this being said, what is the earliest possible date for us to be able to begin this advertising?
Well, I sat down today and I did a timeline. And I have a suggestion that I can share with you if you would like that. And it takes into account, advertisement. It takes into account looking at these applicants and looking for qualifications, providing time for me to notify, interview. It also provides time for travel for these applicants. It provides both a round 1 interview process and a round 2 interview process if you wish to do that, okay? And basically, I have that timeline if y'all would like for me to share it with you. And you can, it's just a suggestion. And I've actually made copies of a calendar so you can, because I know when I throw dates out, that don't help any if you don't have a calendar to look at. And on this calendar, you will see that I highlighted in February, the 20th through the 24th. That is the Mardi Gras holiday. And then I also highlighted in April, the 7th through the 14th is your Easter break. Okay? Just so you kind of have an idea of those holidays. Okay. Okay. So, my timeline that I would suggest, we are currently January 23rd. I do not want to rush. I would prefer not to rush getting that application out to Beauregard Daily News tomorrow by 2 because I want it to be perfect and I want it to be proofed and I want to go through all the details, okay? So, later this week, we could possibly have that advertisement on Beauregard Parish School Board website. We could have that to some of whichever one of these other agencies you would like to advertise. We could have those advertisements sent to those ready to go out. However, because Beauregard Daily News only advertises twice, I recommend the first day it will be seen in Beauregard Daily News would be on February the 3rd. That would be the first date you see it in your official journal. February 3rd. The second date would be February the 10th in your official journal. Okay, that's 1 week apart. At that point, we have met the obligation of advertising twice in our official journal. Well, naturally, if you advertise on the 10th in that official journal, you want to give time for applicants to respond to that application, okay? And just remember that the advertisements for the other agencies that you want me to go out with, we can possibly have those out late this week, early next week. So those will already be circulating. Those will already be on the Louisiana School Board Association website. Those will be out, but as far as the official journal requirement, the 3rd and the 10th. After the 10th, we have met that qualification of our official official journal. So we need to give time for responding. I recommend that we allow until February the 28th, and we close advertisements on February 28th. We close receiving applications. Okay, that's the last date that we would receive applications.
As well as, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So you suggest probably the beginning date for interview starting from March 6th, that Monday?
Actually, I recommend that on Wednesday, the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd is the Louisiana Personnel Conference. Okay, all personnel will be at their state conference that week. So if we close on the 28th, I recommend a committee or whoever y'all decide to review the applications for qualifications that occurred the week of the 6th through the 8th, with a list to be provided to you as the board of who qualifies on the 9th, which is board meeting night.
So that Monday would be the committee meetings anyway, so, no, we don't really have a personnel committee, so I don't really know how that would, but we may have to do an ad hoc or something.
Right. But sometime during that week, we could set up a time to look at applications, determine qualifications, and get a list of those applicants that qualify. And you would know that by the board meeting.
And the goal of the 9th board meeting would be, what would be the goal at that point? Just to have a finalized list of interviewees at that point?
At that point, we would present a list of qualified applicants to the board. And at that point, I will start sending out letters. Naturally, you're going to have to tell me when you want to start interviews, when you want to start first round interviews, and the date, the time. I will send out letters. As soon as we determine qualified applicants, I will start sending those letters out, inviting them to come and interview with you as a board. Just a oh, go ahead.
No, if
I'm
you're,
sorry.
you're
No.
probably about to answer my question.
Okay, just a suggestion, and this is round 1 interviews. And I say round 1, you may only need 1 round. It depends on how many applicants you have. You may need 2 rounds. I figured 2 rounds, okay? So round 1 interviews, suggestion. The week of March 20th through the 24th, sometime during that week.
So I do have a question on the duration of the advertising. Is that something that we come up with here, or is that something that's a recommendation from maybe LSBA or someone that's been through this process multiple times or have seen this and has an understanding of what works best as far as an advertising timeline, you know?
Right.
Because me, when I first looked for face value, that doesn't seem like a lot of time,
Okay.
you know?
And you as a board decide.
Yeah.
The only thing we have to do is we have to meet those 2 qualifications.
Yes.
We have to meet those 2 requirements with the official journal and the advertisement in the metropolitan area. You can advertise as long as you want to. That is totally
I was
your
just,
pleasure.
I was just wondering if we've seen something or there's been some recommendations that says, hey, this is primarily your golden time here. Anything less or more doesn't really bring you value to it.
Right.
So,
And I'm gonna just tell you that in looking back and just doing research, the 2006 superintendent search, they actually advertised 45 days. And then the 2010 superintendent search, I think it was only 30. So, I mean, it's all in what the pleasure of the board, as long as we meet the requirements as far as the advertisement. That's the important part.
So I don't want to disparage anybody, but, February 3rd might be the first official journal publication. We should have this out sooner than that.
Later this week,
So later this week,
it should be being advertised in.
right, so that's basically a full month if you did close it February 28th.
Yeah.
It's not a full month with Beauregard Daily News, but
right.
probably the publication's going to reach more people. It's going to be,
Right.
And that was something I was going to go back to. So when you initially said close we have to receive applications under your scenario on February 28th, we could run ads all the way up to digitally on these newspapers up to that date,
Absolutely.
so and they may see it the day before and like, oh man, I need to hurry and get my application in. But at that point, it would actually be, right at a full month, just a little bit more than a full month. So, and Scott, to your point, I mean, I would assume that I would prefer to have the ad, if we were doing the BDN, if we do it in the American Press, wherever, that we run it during the duration of the application window is what I would.
That's right,
Absolutely,
yeah.
right.
And so, because we'll be doing that naturally online, in online areas as well. So why not just go ahead and make that the case with the newspapers? So,
now, is the Lafayette paper, I think the Lafayette paper, Baton Rouge paper, and New Orleans might all possibly be owned by the same company.
Shreveport, Monroe, Lafayette, and Alexandria are
Okay.
all controlled by the same company. So, yes.
I think you're thinking of the Advocate and the Picayune.
The Advocate,
Yeah,
the Advocate is independent.
yeah. It
And
used to be the Picayune, didn't it? I could be wrong.
Yes, I think so. But it's the Beauregard, the Baton Rouge Advocate is independent. And then naturally, Beaumont in Texas.
I got two quick questions. If we end the receiving applications on the 28th, or we end the advertisements, right? And the application
In the app-
receiving,
In the application process, we always state a date that the application process closes.
okay.
That applications must be received by February 28th at 4:00 PM.
And that's by the regulations, or is that something we're doing?
That's something we do on all advertisements. You want to set a deadline on your advertisements, because once you close them, if you receive something afterwards, then naturally it would not be accepted.
Can you do interviews while applications are still being collected?
Oh.
I think what you said earlier was we just couldn't seat anybody.
That was
Right.
the 30 days, yeah. My
Right.
question is, what if you
I
only
would
had
have to
three
get some guidance on
applications
that one.
at the end of the 28th, and you wanted to extend the application process, but you wanted to go ahead and meet with the three, but maybe you weren't sure that one of those three was gonna be the person.
Well, we certainly could extend it.
Okay.
Shouldn't be any issue extending it. I mean, if we don't have the candidate pool that we're happy with, we can extend it more.
What-
Privately, there'd be no issue, what you're saying. On a public forum, something like
But
this,
you see
there
what I'm
might be
saying,
an
if we
issue.
get, let's say we get 3 applicants by the 28th,
Right.
but it's gonna take us a month to go through the interview process. Are we gonna advertise again, or are we gonna go through that whole month without advertising it, interview, then start it again?
I will
April.
tell you, in every superintendent application or superintendent search I've seen, there is a deadline for receiving applications.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but because we won't meet till the 9th, but if we only had 3 applications, we could just go ahead and begin that process. Let's say, yeah, continue it on the March 1st. Instead of waiting and,
That's the person, she said that's their convention. That's the problem is that there's no convention on the first through the 3rd.
What I would think would end up having to happen is if you're wanting to run it for a second round, maybe we didn't get enough applicants for this one, then we'd have to advertise again and set a new deadline, a specified deadline saying,
Yes.
okay, we've accepted these, that's closed now, we're running it again until this date.
right, so it would, basically everything would start over April
Yes, sir.
1st.
I would say so, but I would definitely get some legal
Yeah.
guidance on that one.
We would definitely have to
I'm
get guidance.
not gonna answer that. I don't feel comfortable answering that one. I'll just tell you. I would rather get some legal guidance on that one. But if, you would have to start the process again, I would think.
I don't know if the clock will start over, but we would have to do something officially, some official capacity.
I think too, David, there'd be no way for them to kind of purge the applicants as they're receiving them for us to be able to look at them and interview them anyway, so,
Right.
you know what I mean?
But it's kind
Yeah,
of-
I was just
Six
wondering
through the
if we
ninth
had to
stages.
end the advertising.
Okay. But we would, I would assume you'd come up as a board with, there's gonna be minimal qualifications, right? But as a board, whether by committee or whatever, we're gonna talk about extending, those qualifications, right? So,
Well, you will be able to look at the applicants and look at their resumes and, transcripts, resumes, applications. Once it closes, we will be able to look at those and then you decide who you want to bring in for interviews.
and we can't look at them until it's closed. Is that what you're saying?
That is normally the process, yes.
Scott, I'll say this also, just having sat on the hiring of the assistant superintendent, it's not quite the same, but in a lot of ways it's the same, is that just talking about your, like, some extra qualifications or whatever
Right.
that you bring out. If there was one thing that was apparent in that process when we were going through all of that, it was that every one of our candidates were extremely well qualified in every way, almost to the point that they were very, very, almost identical, and so that's why the interview process is so important, and that we get that right, and because that really is one of the big ways that is the superintendent's going to set himself apart to us as a board is what vision is he going to cast, what is his leadership style, what are his preferences, those kind of intangible things that aren't going to show up on a piece of paper, and so I would just we're going to be in I wish I had this problem in my work, but we're going to be in the enviable position to have a room full of very, very qualified people. And so then, like I said, it becomes a matter of interview process, vision casting, and that type of thing.
Says a lot about you, Mr. Holly. You had some stiff competition.
So how many people apply for the assistant supervisor?
Do we have 7 originally?
We had 7 originally, and as the process went, we had several of them notify that they had accepted other jobs, in the process, and it happens. I mean, many of them they were out of state, most of them, and they stayed in their state. And then we ended up with 3 that went through the interview process.
So on the application itself, it's just data? There's no paragraph of your teaching philosophy or anything like that?
The application, what we ask for when we send out the application, naturally, we have our professional application that we use, and that's just basic information about the candidate. Then we ask for the resume, and that is usually when they give the cover letter and they give, their idea, their vision, along with their resume, and then their transcript is required and their teaching certificate, and that's where we definitely pinpoint in on that certification. So application, resume, transcript, and teaching certificate is required. Those are the documents that are required in the application process.
I mean, there can be other things that we can add, but usually when you apply for a job, I mean, the resume at this level is usually the first thing you look at.
Yeah, and with
Right.
the resumes were letters of recommendation and stuff like that.
Right.
A good candidate was going to bring some references with those resumes.
And all that will be, you will be able to see all of that, and you will get copies of all of that during the interview process, so that you will have that to look at as you're going through the interviews. That will be provided to you. But it will also be provided to you when we're looking at the qualifications, or when you're looking at whoever you choose to determine whether they're qualified. That'll be something that you're looking at as well.
Background check.
Background check will be done. Naturally, it has to be done whenever they are hired. Before they can be seated, they will have to undergo a background check.
If they're a current employee in the state of Louisiana, will they have to have a second one?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Yes,
How
they
do you
do.
verify the transcript, the schooling? How do you verify that? Do you call? the
We
State
have a
Board of Education? Do
we
you
have a
verification
verification form that we send to get that verification.
Okay.
Yes. But their transcript will provide us with their master's degree, their graduate degree. That's why we ask for a transcript. And, yes, but we will call if whoever gets down to round two, if you get to that point, or we will make sure that,
I know in my world, I don't accept that somebody says they graduated from a certain place. I have to have a primary
That's why
source
we-
verification, so that's what I was
Yes.
asking.
we have to have a transcript with a date of conferment on it. I mean, that is standard with any position. You know, that's one of the qualifications, yes, with the confirmed degree on it, yes.
Ms. Crane, just in your, I mean, I know that you have to handle hiring all the time. So if we were to end like all applications must be received by the 28th of February, is it reasonable in terms of just your everyday line of work, hiring people, is it reasonable for it to take a week to vet apps and to vet the applications and to set the finalized group and then send out letters? Is that a reasonable amount of time for people to expect?
Well, naturally, you know, if you put together, you know, a committee or whoever is going to determine who's qualified, that can be done in a day. I mean,
No,
that can be done in a day, and then the list, I mean, you decide as a board who you want to interview, and then we start sending out the letters.
Yeah, let me reframe my question a little bit.
Okay.
That's not an unreasonable amount of time for like,
No.
okay, just, because I don't find it unreasonable at all, but I just won't because I don't want people to think, oh, well, man, we're really, from the end of this to receiving the applications to the amount of time that it takes to get to the interview. Some may say that, well, that's an unreasonable amount of time because it's a total of 3 weeks from the end to the interview process. So I just, in your professional opinion,
Well, the way the mail runs, we always want to, you know, I mean, I'm gonna just be honest. The way the mail runs, you want to make sure that, and like I said, I will, after you decide who you want to interview, I will send the letters, but you've got to give those letters time
Right.
to get to those individuals.
And if they're out of state, you have to give them time
You've
to make
got to
travel
give them at
plans.
least a week to plan for travel.
Yeah.
I
Mr.
mean,
Green, are you
it,
saying it's too short of a time or too long?
No, I agree that this is a reasonable amount of time. I just was wanting to ask all the questions to make sure
Yes.
that we're not being unreasonable in our expectations. And
I tried,
So-
I tried to think about timelines. Whenever I was putting together this just to present to you as a possibility, I just tried to think of timelines as far as how long it takes to get things done, and to consider mailing, and to consider, naturally, you want your applicants to have time to plan, you know, and when you're going through this process, say, when we're looking at those applications, we have a question that we need to present to LDOE.
You need time.
We need time. And, you know, for it to be done right and very correct, the way it should be, we just want, you know, that's my suggestion. I want to be able to provide all the information and to make sure that the applicants are qualified. I may have to call some districts. I may have to make some phone calls. I may have to do some checking on some things. You know, it gives me time to do that.
Mr. Bowman, where my question was coming from is that I know that when you hire someone that, for what she just, but you don't want to do it too quick after you don't want to start everything too quick, because then people can't plan, and you're like, man, I'd love to do that, but there's no way that I can get there in a week's notice or whatever. But then on the flip side, we also don't want to drag them along for 6-8 weeks, and you're like, man, and then we lose the opportunity to hire them because they're doing other interviews and whatnot. So there is a balance that we're trying to strike, and so I feel it's a reasonable balance. But I was just trying to, you know, ask every question that I could think of in terms of timing.
So right now, Mr. President, I suggest that 28 would be the deadline for the interview. Give plenty of time for the advertisement and all that. Do we need a motion on that?
Let's talk through a few things, but we will probably include that maybe all in one motion. Sound right?
You could, yes. I mean,
Yeah.
you could include the whole procedure in one motion, or, I mean, that is,
Because right
Mr.
now,
Holly, you're the,
I mean, the error of the board, I think, is saying the 28th. So,
let's deal with advertisement and deadline.
right. So let's talk through, before we get there, let's talk through after the 28th. Kind of what is the pleasure of the board as far as, you know, do we have a committee to vet these out? Ms. Crane is obviously going to be looking to vet them. Actually, let's back up a little bit before that. Let's talk about the receiving of the applications. It was brought up, maybe have a separate PO box. We could have them sent here. Another option would be they could go to the district attorney's office, which I personally think is probably the best option. That way, no one in the here in school board has to worry about keeping those. And I've confirmed that is doable. What do y'all think? I mean, seeing a lot of head nods.
Well,
It's a
with some of your talks though with the district attorney.
It was brought up that we could send them there.
Okay.
It wasn't a suggestion, just say, hey, if y'all want to send them there, he would take them.
that idea.
I guess my only concern is what happens if somebody still sends it here?
Oh, we don't want that person.
it
You
will,
would want that, you know, follow directions.
They will follow directions. They will
It-
follow
it-
directions.
it will be specified that in the application, it will be specified where the applications will be sent. And that is the only form the only place where we will receive applications. Okay, all others will not be considered. If you look at if you take a look at the examples that are on the Louisiana School Board Association right now, it's specifically every one of the advertisements state specifically where the application is to be sent, the deadline, and that this is the only form of application that will be accepted. You know, it's very specific, and we will have those specifics in the application.
And so every advertisement that we run is gonna be the exact same across the board.
Yes. I will send out the exact same advertisement to all of the agencies that you instruct me to advertise with.
That would be a red flag in my head if they can't follow instructions. I mean, that would probably,
Just,
So you want all applicants sent to?
No, it's not a liability thing.
The pleasure
Honestly,
of
it
the board.
keeps, it keeps,
Yeah, I
The
would
pleasure of the board.
Ms. Crane, would it, for the process that you're gonna do for us, as far as vetting and that kind of things, would it be difficult would it be easier for them to be sent with you, directly to here?
For confidentiality reasons and for, I mean, I'm gonna tell you, I have questioned many districts in our state through our personnel group. And there are several different procedures that have been used for receiving applications. Two that have been used, and you can even see that on those, Louisiana School Board Association advertisement. There is many districts rent a specific P.O. box for strictly the superintendent search. And applications go to that, or it is sent to their legal counsel. And it's whatever the pleasure of the board is. But that is the way it has started to be handled, the procedure.
and I
Yes.
don't really want to have a key to that PO box. I'd rather it go, so it might look something like superintendent search, care of Jimmy Lestage, district attorney, and then the address.
and that ensures you pick it up, you open it. If it came here, there's no, somebody else could pick it up, accidentally open it, something could be missing, and then that. So for one spot, and you're the designated person to pick them up, it'd be wise.
And Ms. Crane, if we go with that suggestion, legal is accustomed to receiving not only postal packages, but they're also accustomed to FedEx, UPS overnight. So I would like to go ahead and include the physical address as well,
Okay. Okay, I can do that.
after
If
thinking
you-
more
if-
about that, yeah.
If you
That's
provide me with that
consistent, that's
information,
normal.
I can, absolutely, yes. But that is the procedure that has been adopted by other districts, and just kind of getting some history and some information to bring to you.
What are the current hours of the district attorney's office to receiving any mail?
I would have, what time does Miss Kimmy, the district attorney's office, does 4:30? Do they close at 4:30? Yes. So it would go there, they have a P.O. box, so it would go to their P.O. box. And then Mr. Lestage would receive it. It would be in care of him, so.
And there's gonna be a PO box at the post office.
Would be.
So there again, that comes with my concern. If it's addressed to the school board office, then, and it's being put into a PO box, how do we know it's not gonna get messed up there because they're not accustomed to putting school board related items into the district attorney's box?
It would, in the application, we would instruct them to address the application. In the advertisement process, excuse me, I said that wrong. In the advertisement, we would instruct them to address their application to superintendent search of Beauregard Parish School Board with the P.O. box. So it wouldn't be sent to Beauregard Parish School Board. It would be superintendent search.
But you'd
In
also
care
have
of.
care of.
In care of our legal counsel, Mr. Jimmy Lestage, District Attorney.
Yeah. Looks like the mood of the room is for that. Okay. We'll operate under the assumption of February 28th until we vote on it. Receiving those by 4 PM, which is standard, and we'll get a motion in a few minutes. Let's talk about after we receive those. So with Ms. Crane being out March 1st through 3rd, not best to convene. Now, do we,
I may can come back on the 3rd, and I can do some adjustment. And I mean, if that's something that y'all want to get done, you know, I will adjust that. I can, my school law, the school law portion is the part, you know, that I never miss because it's so important. But the 3rd, I could be back here if need be, if that's what y'all want to do.
Well, do we want to have a smaller subcommittee on the 6th? Kind of vet some of these, just make sure that they're qualified? I mean, I'm asking as a board, I'm looking for suggestions. Or do we, I mean, I don't think it's reasonable to really vet them all in here in public meeting. That's not the right way to do it.
This is something above making sure they're certified with the state and.
This will be simply us checking their certification or their ability to be certified in Louisiana if it's an out-of-state applicant.
But you're the.
You're doing that,
You
aren't
should
you?
do
You will do that
That's
for
what
us,
you want me
right?
to do.
We just have to specify that we would like her to do.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't wanna be on that.
If that's what you want me to do, yes,
Yes.
I will do that for you.
Just,
But
I don't know.
just in terms of precedent, that's the way it was brought to us for the assistant superintendent
Good deal.
as well.
Yeah, so I guess the best answer to that is how many people in there have hired a superintendent?
So we don't,
3? I mean, 7 of us
No,
haven't, we don't have a clue she does.
I will do what you need me to do.
Once you you check them.
Yeah.
You know, I'll make sure that we get those from Mr. Lestage, if that's what the board determines in the motion.
So the 6th, is that kind of what you're looking at, throwing around?
I'm thinking maybe on the 6th,
Committee?
well, I was
What
wondering
would
if
our
we could
job
meet,
be, what would we be doing then?
well, I was wondering if we could meet maybe earlier. So we have a policy, committee meetings at 6. You know, we always could come, say, at 3 or 4 o'clock. And
Depending on the number of applicants, is going to be dependent on how much time we need.
Okay.
I mean, if you have 20 applicants, I mean, it's going to take a while, you know, to go through and just make sure that things are in order and,
What if we just looked at the ones that got rejected? And then we know everybody else is in.
I'm not following
Even
you.
that process is gonna take a minute, so for her to even do that, so.
So that would be the first time is with the date, the tentative date they're giving, that you would also look at those, correct?
that's what you tell me to do, yes, ma'am.
So that is so if that is your first time to actually look at them, then that really is putting you in a bind. for
And
us
I
to-
mean, if it's your pleasure, I could look at them on the 3rd. I could start looking at them on the 3rd.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
that's what
I could start looking at them on the 3rd.
it'd be really rushed for you to do.
I
it
just
on the
want,
6th
I'm
and
gonna
turn
just tell
around.
you, I wanna take my time and I want to be very thorough.
Oh,
But
and
let-
we appreciate
Can
that.
let me ask this question. So if you were to receive them, you know, on the 3rd when you get back into town or whatever, I guess, and if she is handling her and her department are handling the vetting process, what would our jobs be on Monday the 6th?
Yeah.
So I don't really
Yeah.
see we would have anything to do at that point, but
You
I
probably
do
won't.
see on the 9th, the Thursday, that she would then, I would expect to have a present, like we
I
have
could
these
present you
completed.
with a list of
A
qualified
list.
applicants.
These are the, yeah, and we're going, as soon as we approve them, we will mail these out the next
And
morning
then-
or
and then you
whatever.
tell
you know.
me.
In my head, that's the kind of logical flow of things. If Ms. Crane is tasked with the vetting, if she's not, then I absolutely agree that we need to meet on the 6th so that we can do all of that. But I would personally prefer Ms. Crane to take the time necessary to do that.
And you will be working on them as you get them, correctly? It's not
I
like
will
you.
not receive them until the closing date. I will not be able to receive them, put them in my hands until after 4 o'clock on the 28th.
So the district
If that's what
attorney's
y'all
gonna
say
hold
is your
it?
closing
So even the
time.
early ones, he.
When
He
you
will
tell
hold-
me
he will
that
hold 'em. Okay,
whatever
got
the
you.
date the
Okay.
application process closes, after that time, I will be able to look at the applications.
Okay. I
And
was
is that
thinking,
standard or why? I
Yeah.
mean, I'm asking,
Yeah,
is
I'm
that
asking.
standard for you, for them to be held? Cause then again, that puts you, you know, a week for you come back on the sixth, or
And-
could we say, look at them as they come in?
yeah,
I mean, if it closes at 4 o'clock on the 28th of February, I will already be in Baton Rouge that evening, okay? Because my conference is the 1st and 2nd.
Sure.
I can start looking at them on the 3rd.
Could you look at them before the 28th as they came in?
That
Is
is,
that, you know, is that legal?
it's not
illegal or
illegal,
something?
no,
Oh.
because we can receive the I can look at them all along, however, that's kind of
She's gonna get a bunch of questions, well, who's applied?
yes.
And, you know, other people are gonna be getting a lot of questions, well, who's applied? And that's kind of puts Ms. Crane in a tough
And
spot.
builds that very clear standard that once the application process closes, then we will start looking at applications.
Just trying to take that.
Like a
the
sealed bid.
immediate
Yeah,
pressure
yeah,
off of
that's
you
what
for, you know, that small window
Right,
that you had.
right.
Is the only reason.
I just was
So
thinking
they
if you
were-
received one on the 15th, you could go pick it up and vet it and
Exactly.
make a folder and put it beside and
The
work on
reason
'em
that
as you
most
got 'em.
districts have done the PO box or through the legal counsel is for that simple reason is that the process is kept very confidential, very, until the application process closes. That way, anyone wants to apply. If you want to apply and you're qualified, apply. We want you to.
How long do you need to vet? I mean, what are you
Well,
comfortable
it just
with?
depends. If I have
So
five.
you get 5.
If I have 5, I can probably have it done on the 3rd. If I got 25, I might need 2 days or a weekend to process through it, you know, and I just want to be thorough. I just want to make sure, you know, it just all depends on the number of applicants we have.
So because our concern is we don't want to overload you, right? We want you to do
I'm fine.
your job,
You
do it
just
well.
tell me what you need
So
me to do.
if we do close on the 28th, you are telling us that barring 300 applications, it's a reasonable amount of time for us to have a list on the 9th.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We
Absolutely.
just want to allow enough time to make phone
Absolutely.
calls, whatever we need.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
So
I
one-
feel that's very reasonable, and that's kind of where I put the timeline whenever I suggested.
One more wrench to throw in the equation. Since Ms. Crane is not gonna be here February 28th, do we just go ahead and extend it to March the 2nd, 2 additional days, and then she'll be here the next day to pick them up? I mean, if not, they're just sitting there. You could have had to have,
Snail mail, it might be.
yeah,
um,
you give it two additional days.
I don't have a problem with that.
I don't have a problem with
If
that.
if they're just gonna be sitting over there anyway, might
You're
as well get
sitting there,
might as well get a
yeah.
couple extra
Yeah.
days.
And that's-
So-
minute.
That way, you know,
No
if
brainer.
one comes in a day after, then no one at the district attorney's office has to worry about, oh, well, this one came in. What do we do with it?
Yeah, I'd be fine with that.
Okay. It sounds like we have a plan. Is there any other questions before we start looking for a motion?
And we can look at interview dates and times, once we get the number of applicants we have, we can address all that, you know,
After the
once
9th.
we know what we're dealing with. Because that may change, you might need 2 days to interview first round. Yeah, it just depends on how many applicants you get, so those things can be, you know, we can hash that out at a later date.
I know when we did for the assistant superintendent, we had 3 really good candidates, and we went an hour at least per, maybe longer.
Yes, an
So
hour.
now we had, at that point, we had
45 minutes
3. We certainly couldn't go quite that long if we had 10.
I think we were talking about that when we had 7. We were
Yeah.
Trying to come up with a time frame.
So it looks like probably not, but the earliest we could start is the week of March the 13th as far as doing interviews. Probably more reasonable would be the March the 20th week and the
Remember,
27th.
you gotta give me time to send out the letters and them to make
And make,
plans to be here.
and make plans, yeah.
Yes.
So,
Just a thought.
yeah, no, I think the 20th through the 24th at the earliest for interviews that's a reasonable amount of time. I'm good with that. You know, I wouldn't want to go earlier. I would only want to go later, but I'm good with that week.
And then I had also, I don't know if I got to this part yet, I don't remember, but if a second round is needed, you could always do that the week of, the 27th through the 31st and have your superintendent seated by the 3rd of April. I mean, that's just
Before
before the holidays.
spring break.
And that's just a kind of guideline that put out there and for your consideration.
Mr. Bowman, before we do make a motion, I do think that we should hash out exactly where we're going to advertise, unless you feel like that.
Can you, so you had the Beauregard Daily News. We have the Lake Charles American Press. We're going to advertise in the Lafayette paper, Alexandria paper. Correct?
Shreveport
Tell me who
Times.
you want.
Well, I
mean,
think she was
can-
looking for us to tell her where
Yes,
to go.
you
so-
tell
I'm
me
just trying to
where
remember
you
what was
want.
on your
Yes,
list already.
Shreveport, Monroe, Lafayette, Alexandria, Baton Rouge, naturally our official journal, Beauregard Daily News, Lake Charles American Press, the Louisiana School Board Association, Beaumont Enterprise, and then online for southeasttexas.com.
I like them all. I like
Yeah.
them all.
I agree.
And
Yeah,
I think
more
we
the
need
merrier.
to
So
do
you say
Indeed or some of the job search
And
sites too.
KPLC television.
Yeah, the press release to KPLC
Press release.
or to whoever really, but send it to KPLC.
So is there a national school board association, or what is that group that Louisiana is now part of?
I think I can get her to submit it because this is one of the things she told us today when we talked to her. Whenever, she specifically asked us, are you going to want me to strictly advertise within the state or in-state and out-of-state?
Out of state.
So I'm assuming from your conversation, it would be both?
Okay, okay.
You tell me
I know
what you
we're-
would,
Right, we're not part of the National Student Louisiana's part of another group. Help me out, those that went to orientation. It was
Louisiana School Board Association, we can look into the national level if you,
Right,
if that's
right.
what you wanna
But
do.
they're part of another group that's called, starts with a C. It's like they broke off and, yes, something like that. And that's the national, do that way, so.
You tell me what you want,
Okay.
and I'll do it. I mean, we'll get it out there.
If it wouldn't be too much trouble, I would like us to consider posting it on Indeed.
Absolutely.
You know, so that we at least have one predominant. Well, I mean, I know you said the Southeast Texas, but one specific job posting site.
Are we on LinkedIn? I think we are.
As Beauregard Parish School Board,
Yes.
not as a school board,
We're
we're
not.
not.
Okay.
What about on Facebook, is that?
We don't have
We
an
don't have a
official Facebook page as Beauregard
okay.
Parish School Board.
We do for Indeed, or we don't for either one?
No, we do not.
For LinkedIn, we don't have.
I mean, that would be an account that would have to be set up, I'm assuming, through
Yeah.
Indeed.
I think LinkedIn is, we can do both, but I think LinkedIn might be more, and educators in here tell me, LinkedIn might be more applicable. But we can look at both. We ought to have both anyway.
I know we should.
We should just have both. And,
Do y'all have y'all's profiles or anything on there?
no.
I have mine on LinkedIn.
I've seen some on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So that.
But I
haven't seen
mean,
that
as
many.
far as the school board, no.
I mean, I don't have a preference. I mean, I'm good with either. I just want us to at least make an attempt to get on some sort of internet.
So you're
Yeah.
familiar with,
Cast the net wide.
you're
LinkedIn.
familiar with that?
I have a
Right.
personal account, I mean, but we don't have a school board account.
I mean, for the future, we need to have a LinkedIn account.
You can make that happen.
I sure Surely can, if that's what you want me to do.
Page two.
Okay. Does anybody have a good motion? Or am I gonna need to? Mr. Green, are you working on
You
one?
got it?
You want to charge?
One other just quick
Yeah.
question, it might be just off the wall crazy. We're gonna close the apps around the second, they were talking about. So they have to be received by then. Okay. So we all know USPS. Should we put a postmark by date on there? Is there any way we can do that? And the reason I ask is I received a letter from the Secretary of State that was mailed November 21st, I believe. I got it last week.
Well, one thing you have to consider is if you go by the postmark, you may be totally finished with the hiring process and have a superintendent seated by the time you get
And that's why I was
the
asking.
application. So, I mean, it's just something
And I
to
was thinking-
consider.
I was thinking within reason, you know, if one shows up 2 days late, but it was postmarked.
And I would think
a
that,
week ahead.
I would think that most people would send it certified receipt and, you know,
FedEx.
especially with an application process such as that, I would think, you know, but, that's just something to consider. If you go by a postmark date, you may be totally finished with the interview process and the seating of the superintendent, and we get an application.
And I think it was mentioned we would be able to receive them via FedEx or anything like that.
I can put the physical address where they're going if that's what you want.
They're accustomed to that at legal department.
That's,
I do think that it needs to be, that we need to be clear that we run the ads for the duration of the window.
Yes.
You know, so I know that at minimum, we have to run it on the 3rd and the 10th for the Beauregard Daily News, for example, but I think, so in everywhere that we advertise, I would like us to be able to run it during the window, the whole window. Is that, you tracking with me? Like or is that not a good idea? So I feel like that, you know, if we, the second that we can go out with it, we run it all the way until, I guess, the first, the day before they're due, I would assume,
Okay.
something like that.
Yeah.
So, just so that way they run for that whole window. Now, how do we get all that into a motion that's, I mean, it could be as simple as okay, I think I can craft something.
That's what you were talking about, that COSSBA.
Yes, yes, that's the.
That's the national association that Louisiana is
COSBA.
affiliated with.
Yes, CASA. They're not linked with the National Association, they're linked with CASA now, so.
It makes,
Which,
28 deadline.
when you go to Louisiana, she may offer to push it up to that, so.
I'll make sure she has that information.
So with the Louisiana School Board Association, both in-state and out-of-state?
Out of state.
Cut it down, just make a motion as advertise all will be agreed upon, advertisement in the 28 deadline date.
Okay, y'all don't get on to me if this is a mess, so I'm gonna do my best here. All right, I'd like to make a motion that we begin the advertisement process for filling the position of superintendent beginning on January the 24th with advertisements and application ending on March the 2nd, 2023 at 4:00 p.m.
And received by
Okay,
March
now,
22nd.
saying on January 24th, I don't know if I will get it out
No,
tomorrow.
I'm just,
Okay,
that's more just to,
Okay.
you can start
Just-
immediately.
Start
Okay.
immediately.
That's more the,
Okay, I
the,
just want to make sure that I'm clear
So-
that
You're clear to start on the
Okay, you put
24th.
on.
the week
28
of,
The deadline to return on the 28th.
we decided to move it to the 2nd of March
Oh, she's gonna be.
because she's gonna be gone anyway, so she wouldn't be able to pick them up until then anyway. So, I mean, I feel like everybody's kind of on the same page as to all the other details, but, I can get more specific if we need to, but.
I think that's,
Yeah, with your official journal, you know the dates of that, the 3rd and the 10th, and, yeah.
Read it one more time.
Ms. Pa- let's wait for just a second, see what Ms. Pam has. We can go through that again.
I have a motion to begin the process of advertising for a superintendent on January 24th and ending on
Okay, you need to
Yeah, we need to add something to that.
About being received
concluding
by,
or received by.
by March the 2nd at
With,
4.
yeah, Ms. Pam, amend that to, with all applications received by 4 PM on March 2nd, or something like.
Application deadline of March the 2nd.
Yes.
Yeah.
At 4 p.m.
There you go.
Do we need to
That's great.
specify in the motion where they are
No, she's gonna have it on
received at the
the,
DA's office?
she's gonna have that on the advertisement, right? It's gonna be on the advertisement anyway.
Let's put in the motion to be accepted by our legal counsel, Jimmy Lestage, at the end. If that's okay.
Yeah.
Do a PO box because it won't go directly to him.
The PO box and a physical address in case it's FedEx.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't think we have to put that. part
Yeah, I
in
don't
the
think we need
motion.
to necessarily
have to
get
put all
quite
that,
that
okay.
specific.
Yes,
Okay, so advertisements for, begin the process for advertising to fill the position of superintendent beginning on January 24th and concluding by, what'd you have, Ms. Pam? Can you help me on that end?
Deadline. She said something about an application deadline, with application
Ms.
deadline.
Pam's a
being
whip,
March
guys.
2nd.
She can whip this all together.
She can.
She can make us look good.
With, beginning part, with an application deadline of March the 2nd, 2023 at 4 p.m. for applications to be received at the office of the board's legal counsel, District Attorney Jimmy Lestage.
I feel like that encapsulates kind of everything.
All right. And I'll second his motion.
All right, so we have a first and a second. Mr. Holly, it's almost your bedtime.
Dozy.
Any other questions about the motion? All in favor of the motion? Actually, let's read it one more time for clarity.
Motion to begin the process of advertising for a superintendent on January 24th, 2023, with an application deadline of March the 2nd, 2023 at 4 p.m. for applications to be received at the office of the board's legal counsel, District Attorney Jimmy Lestage.
Thank you, Ms. Pam. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Ms. Tammy. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Go rest those knees, an hour and a half on one item.
Wow.
It's important, though, and worth it.
Thank you. Y'all have a great evening.
You too.
Item number 2, to consider adopting a resolution designating financial authority to the interim superintendent.
Good evening, everybody. So this is an easy one. I am going to read the resolution to you. What this allows us is to be able to have Mr. Hawley's name be added to the bank accounts so that I am also allowed to have him added on as a check signer for our payroll and all of our AP checks as well. But I do have to read
This
this.
is standard operating procedure
Yes,
for
sir.
superintendents.
Yep, yep. But I do need to read this word for word. Whereas the Beauregard Parish School Board has appointed Larry Hawley to serve as the interim superintendent effective January 16th, 2023. And whereas the Beauregard Parish School Board authorizes Larry Hawley in his capacity as interim superintendent to make modifications to financial institutions' signature agreements as made necessary by personnel changes, and whereas the Beauregard Parish School Board authorizes Larry Hawley in his capacity as interim superintendent to conduct all financial transactions from any Beauregard Parish School Board account to any other Beauregard Parish School Board account. Therefore, be it resolved that the Beauregard Parish School Board has, and at the time of adoption of said resolution, had full power and lawful authority to adopt the foregoing resolution and to confer the powers therein granted to the person named, who will have full and lawful authority to exercise the same. Thus done and signed this 23rd day of January 2023 at the Beauregard Parish School Board Central Office, 202 West 3rd Street, DeRidder, Louisiana.
Okay, so do I have a motion to accept this resolution?
Can I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
On the, I think it's the second one, 23rd. It says he has the capacity to move money from one school board account to any other Beauregard Parish School Board account. Give me an example of why that would happen.
We have 6 banks.
6 banks.
Yep,
Okay.
so if I need to do a transfer from our Chase Bank, to do a wire transfer to make a payment on our bond account to our FNB bank account, because all of our banking happens at FNBD. But we store our money at 6 banks because of the FDICs. We can only store so much money in one bank. And I am only able to move so much money, so between myself and Mr. Holly, that's what that is.
That answer your question, Shirley?
Somewhat. Because I don't, even 6 banks, you go over are you saying the 250,000 FDIC insured amount? Or what do you mean by you need 6 banks to hold all the money, I guess?
Yes, we have 6 banks to hold all of our accounts, and we have multiple accounts.
Right.
But our AP, our payroll comes from First National. Chase Local Bank has 3 other separate accounts that hold our bond and all those other ones. And we have CDs and other accounts that are investments accounts in 4 other banks. But that doesn't have to do with the, I guess you're thinking of levels of spending kinds of things. I'm talking about payments that we would need to make for invoices that you've already approved, I guess, bond transactions.
Hurricane.
Hurricane,
So
Insurance.
yes.
I think all the payments are made out of one account. Is that
Yes,
correct?
everything comes from FNBD,
So you have to move the money that's being held for one
yes, from
account.
one bank to the next, in
into
order to make
FNBD.
some of those payments.
Yeah, I was just curious as to why you have 6 banks, I guess.
It was something that way when I came in here, sir.
Seems so.
It has been that way for quite some time. But
We've had,
it keeps it easy for collateral as well, to keep it at the banks, for the banks to hold that collateral, so that
Yeah.
it's not bringing it in and out, for
And-
them to do so.
and there has been issues in the past where
Yes,
a bank didn't have enough collateral.
to
So
cover
we
the
have-
funds
we
that we
have to-
have in some of these banks.
We don't ever want to be in that situation.
Right. For them to, especially if we're putting a large deposit into one bank, for a bank to gain that collateral as quickly as they need to get so into that bank, so. Any other questions on that resolution?
I can make the motion if you need one.
Please.
Okay, I make a motion that we adopt the resolution designating financial authority to the interim superintendent.
I'll second that motion.
Got a first and second? Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So speaking of money, what Mr. Holly is not going to be doing is transferring this money into his account for being the interim superintendent. But we do, before we get to the committee assignments, we do need to look at compensating Mr. Holly for his work that he is doing right now as the interim superintendent. So we will hopefully address that in February. So few people have asked questions about that, so we'll give a
The
little clarity.
finance committee.
So item number 3, to receive committee assignments for 2023. I have those. I made a copy of it, Cynthia. You don't even have to write it down. Look at that.
I was getting ready to write it all down.
So the Beauregard Parish School Board 2023 committee assignments, Finance Committee, Ms. Cynthia Lafitte is the chair. All board members. Made that way too thick, huh? They're not seen enough that way?
High quality stuff. This is a resume paper.
Hey, I did that. Finance Committee, Ms. Cynthia Lafitte is the chair. All board members do serve on that committee. Building and Grounds, Mr. Scott Sandiford will chair that committee with Mr. Arshield, Kibido, Redler, and Ms. Weldon. The Policy Committee will be chaired by Mr. Garrett Green with Ms. Neely, Shirley, Ms. Lafitte, Mr. Kibido on that committee. Discipline Committee and Uniform Committee, Ms. Christy Neely. And the Calendar Committee, also Ms. Christy Neely and David Shirley. So you two will represent the 4 and 5 day schools for the calendar year, when make the calendar for the 2023-2024 school year. We do not have we have a insurance committee. It is not a committee that meets regularly. In the event that we do meet, Mr. Shirley, I would ask for you to be the chairman of that. And then Mr. Green, Weldon, Arshield, and Redler will serve on those. Of course, our student representative is Ms. Kinsey Hudler. I think everyone who reached out to me regarding committees, I think I was able to satisfy that in these assignments. So I thank y'all for those inputs. In the event that we don't have a quorum in those committees, the board president typically serves as the first alternate. So if you don't have 3 people show up, I'll sit in. I plan on being here. So, typically, just to go back over the timeline, Mondays, the Finance Committee, Building and Grounds, and Policy meet just about every Monday prior to the board meeting of the month. Any questions? Okay. With that, I'll entertain a motion that we adjourn the agenda, adjourn the meeting. Motion, second?
You gotta work on that, man.